Access to medical care is becoming more and more of an issue here in Guam, and it doesn't even matter if you have the ability to pay. It's getting harder to see a doctor, to get an appointment, or to get the specialty care that you need. So I want to show you a growing solution to a growing problem. They're going to go out of their way to help find you a solution. And they've been growing their clinical services. Aside from this place looking and feeling homely, like this is their waiting area. Like, I don't think that people really understand that they do full clinical services here. Like, this is one of their clinical rooms. Look how nice it is. You get your vision exam here. So do you need to see an OBGYN, get family medicine done, internal medicine done? This is all stuff that's done here at the Total Guam Foundation. And just to tell you again, this place is not for profit. This is the psychologist's office. Yes, they have a psychology department. They also do psychiatry. It's an entire mental health department that they have here on top of all the other clinical services that they provide. If you need medical care, if you're having problems getting a doctor, getting an appointment, call the Todu Guam Foundation at 649-TODU or 649-8638. You can visit them. I have been dilly-dallying or lollygagging, whichever term you prefer, for the past 2 hours. And that's why I'm only starting this show now. It's 9:26 a.m. on Thursday, July 23, 2026. I first have to, and I I know this is getting tired for me, and I need to stop apologizing and just do it, right? Ever since this whole Bobby thing, and I know I need to stop using that as an excuse, because it's an excuse now, because I'm at the point where I wake up in the morning and I don't want to do these shows. Just, if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm just I don't know if I'm approaching a burnout, or if this, and this actually does happen to me on the lead up to an election. Like, I just don't want to deal with it. Whether it's because I was involved in the election, or whether, now that I'm not involved in an election, but reporting, going into an election. The election's on August 1st, everybody. And I just don't look forward to it. So first, let me just say I'm sorry for having the show late today. I could have had it at 8 a.m. on schedule, but I was dilly-dallying and lollygagging. And then let me say that speaking of the election, I was having this conversation with Johnny Rosario and Eric Rosario, because they're gung-ho, right? They're the extroverts. They're the ones who like doing stuff like this, and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to the UOG Fieldhouse on election night for election coverage. And I was like, you guys can go to the UOG Fieldhouse on election night for election coverage, but I'm gonna be in bed because I gotta wake up and serve at church the next day. And heck, if any results from the gubernatorial or senatorial or congressional races are going to be more important than that, like I want to go to sleep. And also, it's not that I don't care who wins the election. Like, I've got, I know who I'm going to vote for governor. But it's up to each of you. It's up to each of us to cast our individual votes and to value that. And collectively as voters, whoever we want, right? And so I'm not going to lose any sleep over that, literally. And also, I don't care for the nerve-wrackingness of election night. It's not something, I'm too old for it. I've been through all of that before, and it's so if you want coverage on election night, you can get the coverage from Kandit News, but it's not going to include me. You can get the coverage from me the following morning when we wake up on Sunday and analyze the election results. But the live coverage will be from Johnny Rosario and Eric Rosario over at the UOG Fieldhouse, and they already made friends with the Democrat and Republican Party people over there, so everything will be just fine. Today I want to talk about two issues. One was something I didn't get to talk about yesterday morning because I didn't have much time. And it is this birthright citizenship issue and how it will affect us if it's passed, and how it could affect us if it's passed. And then the second is, this is something when I saw it it wasn't the magistrates, it was it was a confinement report that showed the name of an assistant attorney general who had been locked up on police offense of, I think it was theft or something like that. When someone sent it to me, I was like, what? Why would an assistant attorney general steal a car? I was like, this is such a bizarre thing. And the first thing I thought was maybe this guy is a klepto. Like he just, it's something that he enjoys doing, right? Like I can't think of another reason why someone who makes that much money and is a lawyer and works for the attorney general's office would steal a car, right? And then more of the story started coming out, and I got a bit of PTSD about the issue of possible police corruption, or at the very least, boundaries being violated with respect to the role of police, and how civil matters and criminal matters sometimes get blurred together, and the PTSD comes from those blurred lines coming from political influence, or the corrupt influence of cronies into the police department. And I say PTSD because stuff like that happened to me a while ago. Thankfully, it was a long time ago, and nothing like that has happened to me in a while. But I recently talked to somebody who had stuff stolen from her and her husband, an elderly couple from Iran. And they went to the police and they were told there's nothing we can do because it's a civil matter. And so I wanted to talk about that in the context of how police resources are being used for stuff like that versus the consecutive arsons for which the assailants are still on the loose, and why are police resources being utilized to police civil matters, especially involving an assistant attorney general, over criminal matters affecting the public safety, including violent crimes. We will talk about these things on the other side of the commercial break. Please do stick with us.
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
Before we get into the main topics, there is a very important request that the family of, I suppose the legal name is Robert Timinglo, but better known as, or I think totally known as, Berta or Roberta Timinglo. Berta Timinglo went missing some time ago. There's a flyer. If you are on Kandit's WhatsApp channel, you would have seen the flyer that we passed out this morning. We also posted it last night onto our Instagram and to our Facebook. And please do, wherever you see, whatever platform you're on with us, please do share that flyer to help Berta's family in this search for Berta. Actually, let me pull up the flyer, because the flyer shows tells us the date that she went missing. Stand by. Her last known location was Compadres Mall in Harmon on Thursday, June 25, between 11:30 a.m. and 12:45 p.m. She was last known to be wearing dark gray semi-cropped top with a frayed or ripped hem paired with denim shorts. her car was seen on Thursday night, June 25, outside of Pocket Cave, Manila. There's since been a typhoon that has intervened between then and now. And I don't know if there have been any sightings. We don't have any information from police, but um, back in late June or early July, this information came out from the family. Then the police put out information asking for the public's help. The police administration or the police officials were not entirely helpful in helping the public to match the name that they put out with the release with the face of the missing person. And for their missing persons investigation. I hope that in the future they do better with stuff like that. But uh, days went by, and matter of fact, yesterday, I think 5:58 p.m. last night, I sent a message to GPD spokesman Norman Analista asking whether Berta Taimelo was still missing, because we hadn't heard there was no follow-up from police about the case. And it just occurred to me, this was before the family sent this this flyer. The flyer was sent late last night, actually. I'm not sure what prompted it to be sent out late last night, but the family sent out a flyer late last night. It just coincidentally a few hours before, because in the media we hadn't heard anything, and so maybe she was found, and that would have been a wonderful thing to report, right? But Norman Analista, the police spokesman, he said that he has received the inquiry. That's all he said. He didn't say he was going to get back to us or anything. He still hasn't gotten back to us about it. But apparently, Roberto Taimelo remains missing, because last night the family put out a new flyer asking that if anyone has any information about her disappearance or where she might be, to please call 911. So sorry, I didn't load it onto this, so I can't put it onto the screen right now. But the flyer, it's a beautiful flyer, by the way, and she's a beautiful person. She's a beautiful woman wearing a yellow, my favorite color, a yellow dress with this belt. You'll see it on our WhatsApp channel. You'll see it on our Facebook and our Instagram as well. And we ask that you share that flyer so that more people can be aware that Roberta Taimelo is a missing person and here in Guam. Well, one of the questions that I asked Analista was whether detectives have reviewed flight records to see whether maybe she went off island, and if not, if they have reviewed the flight records and there's no record of her leaving island, then the only other possibilities would be that she left by boat to somewhere, or that she's on this island somewhere. All right, so please do share that flyer. There was an arrest recently, and I can't remember the name of the guy, but he is a recent addition to the Office of the Attorney. He's an Assistant Attorney General. But that's beside the point. That's actually his title. Who he is not even part of the point here. He was arrested for theft of a motor vehicle, which was a bizarre thing on its face, right? Simply because of, why would a lawyer be stealing a car unless he was a klepto or something, right? In information that's come out since from Attorney General Doug Moylan, his employer, what it sounds like is a civil dispute with the car rental company, and it was a disagreement and a dispute with the car rental company, and it had to do with the payment. And so if any of you have ever been involved in a situation where somebody owes you money, or you're a business who and you have a customer who didn't pay, and you exhaust certain means, or there's a dispute about when property needs to be returned, all this different stuff, right? You might have tried to engage the police, and the police very likely told you, "I'm sorry, sir," or "I'm sorry, ma'am, this is a civil matter. You can go to small claims court, or you can get a lawyer if it's more than $5,000 or whatever," right? Because there are these clear, or there's supposed to be these clear boundaries of what a police officer can and cannot do. And a police officer is not supposed to be administering civil judgments. A police officer is supposed to be patrolling for and investigating violations of the criminal code. And so these blurred lines exist on the regarding theft. So very recently, right? I spoke with a woman who is elderly. She and her husband, they're from Inarahan, and they hired some contractors to do some work. They paid the contractors. They had the contractors sign um, a contract, all this different stuff, right? The contractors ended up stiffing them. They just never returned to finish the work. And so, they got, they filed a police report. The police keep telling them, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. This is a civil matter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, the recourse that you have is to go to small claims court, or because it was actually more than $5,000 to file a lawsuit, and that costs money and all that different stuff, right? One of the main reasons that I left the governor's office in 2017, I think it was 2017, was because of a civil dispute. It didn't involve me. It involved my ex-boyfriend. This matter actually led to make a long story short, because it's a very long story. It led to the FBI looking into the conduct of the police in terms of police corruption, because, okay, real fast, right? So some of you have heard me tell the long story before. That was a while ago. My ex-boyfriend at the time, this is a long time, his name is Michael Marasigan. He's the one that's wanted by the FBI for leaving the country. Anyway, he was already my ex-boyfriend at the time of this incident. He owned a business company with the other convicted felon in this case, Wan Sun Min. And they had a civil dispute. And Wan Sun Min allegedly had brought in her friends, or allegedly paid, allegedly hired, I don't know if she paid, allegedly had police officers, who some of whom were on duty and some off duty, through a company owned by police officers, come in and forcibly take the business from Michael Marasigan. So it was a civil dispute where the police got involved, and it was absolutely police corruption. So anyway, that was where, so I at the time, or about a few months later, when I ran into my troubles, I called, and I was already talking to the FBI about corruption in the administration. One of the things that I reported was this whole thing, because at the time, the police department was doing all of these really crazy, brazen things. And you could pay a police officer to enforce your civil whatever. Like, if you knew a cop, you could call a cop to do things for you. That's essentially what was going on at the end of the Tenorio Kingdom over the Guam Police Department back in 2016, 2017, 2018. Thank goodness that era is over, right? But so to make the long story short, I told the FBI agent, I was like, hey, this thing happened to my ex-boyfriend. You might want to look into it. The FBI agent looked into it. And at some point, Wan Sun Min became a cooperating defendant for the FBI, and then told the FBI, or I guess provided the FBI with documents showing that Michael Marasigan was involved in this illegal business or illegal bingo thing, the same thing that she was involved in. She ended up pleading out in her own case. She became the star witness against Michael Marasigan, and the rest is history, right? $34 million in whatever. And despite what all the Josh and Tina people who are trying to bury me with this by saying that I was somehow involved with all of that, like, hey, I'd be a little bit of a happy camper if I saw any of that money, but I had no, I was the one paying the mortgage at the time when I found out that there was $34 million, which of course wasn't around at the time that we broke up, and during that same year that that whole business started, right? Um, now I'm just going off on a tangent, but uh, so it's not like he made that money during that time, right? But that is when the conspiracy actually started. Was that final year that we were together? We were together for 10 years. But I would joke to my friends. I'd be like, well, damn, if I knew he had some money, I would have asked him to at least pay the darn mortgage. anyway, so that's my PTSD when it comes to stuff like this. And so as I thought about this story regarding the this whole car thing, I was like, wait a minute. How in the hell does the police department have the resources to investigate a civil matter on behalf of whatever the aggrieved party is? And maybe it's a car rental company. I don't know. But I can almost guarantee you that somebody in the aggrieved party side called up a cop friend and said, can you do this for me? Because we have this dispute with whoever. And the cop friend said, yeah, I'll do it for you. And went on to make the arrest in a civil matter. How in the hell does the Guam Police Department have the resources to take care of something like that when they haven't made an arrest in the criminal cases involving possibly a serial arsonist on the loose, or arsonists on the loose, multiple people? Because on June 27 of this year, at a PD residence, suspects, according to the Guam Police Department, at 3 in the morning went to a home where a family was sleeping and exploded a car, which of course woke up the family. And all, could you imagine the mayhem and the fear? And then a few days later, on July 1, suspects went and exploded another vehicle at a residential parking lot, a multi-dwelling, an apartment complex. Exploded another vehicle. At least one of the members of the two victim families is believed to be a witness in federal investigations. There are connections between the two victim families. And there also are connections between one of the allegedly known assailants and one of the defendants of this federal investigation. So much so that when we asked the United States Attorney whether they knew that this certain defendant was part of or was being looked at as a suspect in this arson conspiracy investigation, the U.S. Attorney, who normally always provides a no comment, asked the public that if they know of any person who is tampering in a federal investigation or trying to skew a case one way or the other, to call federal law enforcement right away and report it. And if that person is a federal defendant, to call U.S. Probation and Pretrial Services right away. Yet. And some of this stuff is caught on video. And from my understanding from source reports, some of the videos show clearly who at least one of the assailants is. And there's other video that apparently, clearly shows one of the assailants getting into a car right after one of the incidents with this federal defendant. And I'll tell you, I'm trying to choose my words wisely here. so as not to reveal too much about the federal defendant part. Okay? But for very good reason. That I want to tell you, but it's just for very good reason, okay? We have a problem in this island, and it's not a problem that is confined to this current administration, but it's a problem that has existed probably in every single administration. Is if you know, or if you are part of the powers who are, you are able to get people, either yourself or your family members, or your friends, your cronies, whoever owes you, whoever you owe, off when it comes to criminal investigations by the police. Or you can use the police to go after people to settle your civil disputes. It is a big problem that this island has. It's something that thankfully was reduced when Ray Tenorio left office. He was the absolute worst at this. Just a monstrosity of a government abusing its power, of a politician abusing the power of the police and allowing the police to abuse their police powers. But it hasn't gone away. And the fact that police have been able to use resources, to abuse resources, to go after some guy on a civil issue that very likely resulted from somebody just making a phone call to a friend in the police department asking for a favor, that they have the resources to spend on that and not the resources to spend on finishing and the investigation and making an arrest in a possible serial arsonist case that possibly or allegedly involves a federal defendant in another case with possible political connections, major political connections, tells us all we need to know about the recurring state of police abuse and corruption involving politicians. And it's just such a sad thing. And, you know, I know that this is not the detectives' fault, that the detectives, they do their jobs, but they also have to follow orders and follow instructions, especially when it comes to the budgeting of police resources, like what it is that they're going to spend their time on, what it is that they're told that they must prioritize as investigations over other things. But wouldn't it be nice if there was a governor who was like, you know what? If I catch any of you in my administration trying to influence the actions of the Guam Police Department, I will not only fire you, I will report you myself to the Attorney General or to the FBI. Wouldn't it be nice if we finally had a governor who said something like that, first of all, and also meant it and did that, so that the police could be left alone to do their jobs as professionals? But instead, we have a situation where police resources are being used to administer a civil matter, and those same resources being taken away from catching a possible serial arsonist. It really is beyond, it's just disgusting, and I hope this kind of thing stops. When we come back from the other side of the commercial break, I want to talk about birthright citizenship and the bill that was introduced by, I think his first name is Morgan, I know his last name is Griffith. He's from the 9th District of Virginia, and there are multiple, didn't think about that need to be discussed about this, and we'll get to all of that on the other side of this commercial break. Stick with us. So this birthright citizenship debate is comprehensive, and it's not the easiest thing in the world. And I don't think you could responsibly be like completely on one side versus another side or whatever, right? And there's a lot to consider. There's the citizenship clause of the Constitution. There's the territorial clause of the Constitution. There's how these clauses have been interpreted by the Supreme Court during its imperial and most racist era in the insular cases. There's the insular cases all the way up to now where we discuss issues of self-determination and so-called second-class citizenship and all this different stuff, right? But let's set that stuff aside for a second, right? And let's start with some context. On August 1, 1950, Congress passed the Organic Act, using its power of administration over territories that the Constitution gives it. In the Organic Act, we were given United States citizenship as a function of Congress, not the Constitution. Sometime later, I can't remember when the covenant between the United States and the CNMI was entered into, but it was much, much later. A covenant between the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, or a covenant establishing the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands with the United States, provided citizenship. So again, it was Congress in its administration of a territory. And I know some people don't like to call it the CNMI a territory, but it's for all intents and purposes, the CNMI remains a territory of the United States. It has a Commonwealth, but this bill by Morgan Griffith proves very much that that covenant is not a contract between the U.S. government and the CNMI. It is not a treaty between the U.S. government and itself, something that the Constitution doesn't provide for. The Constitution provides that the United States government can enter into treaties with foreign nations, but not with itself. And this discussion, or if this bill passes, could yield some type of an existential crisis for the Commonwealth. But I'll get to that in just a second. So now that you have some context on this, Morgan Griffith, he's from the 9th District of Virginia. He's a Republican, and he has had enough with birthright citizenship. And because the Supreme Court has already ruled that, hey, you can't touch this stuff when it comes to the states, he's turned his attention, and others have turned their attention to the territories, because our citizenship is not constitutionally founded. It's provided by Congress. And so Morgan Griffith, because of issues involving foreign nationals who do not have permanent residency in the United States, or who are not legally here on a path to permanent residency, come to like Guam or Saipan or Puerto Rico, or the Virgin Islands, and they have babies. And they come when they're 9 months pregnant, or maybe they come when they're 8 months pregnant. But they have babies while they are so-called vacationing, based on the visa waiver agreements that we have and all this different stuff, right? And those babies become citizens by birthright. That's where you get the term birthright citizenship. Now, I'm not saying that this is not an issue. This was a very big issue in Saipan for some time. It's no longer a very big issue in Saipan. They've since clamped down with enforcement. This was kind of an issue in Guam, as in terms of the numbers, and I'm sure it still happens now, but just not at the numbers where it's anything that to be concerned with. And with Guam, it's far less concerning in terms of national security, at least in the eyes of those who view things from an entire nation perspective versus who's a spy and who's an actual danger to national security, et cetera, as though babies could be dangers to national security. But um, uh, and the bigger issue has been in the CNMI because of their ability to welcome Chinese visitors, people from the People's Republic of China. And so there was for a time a lot of babies being born from Chinese nationals who did not have the documents to remain in the United States. They were tourists from China. They were coming in and they were just to have babies, producing this whole. And there are all these companies that promote this type of thing and make a lot of money and also screw a lot of people over. Because, you know, when you're doing something in the black market, you're able to screw people over because no one's going to report you to the police, right? So there is kind of an issue. And rather than taking a scalpel to the issue, Morgan Griffith wants to take a sledgehammer to it. And this sledgehammer has the potential of upending citizenship. Now, currently, in the version of the bill he has, which can always be changed by anyone in the House, and whenever that version passes the House, it can be changed by anyone in the Senate. The president can get involved and he can weigh in and he can very greatly influence things, especially particularly among the Republicans in Congress. But right now, what this thing says is it takes all of these congressional statutes that established our citizenship. For us, it's the Organic Act of 1950. For the CNMI, it is the Covenant. And it changes the section on citizenship. So this section that has never been changed about our citizenship all this time. So Congress gave us citizenship. Congress never did anything after that about our citizenship. Things have been talked about, but Congress never did anything to endanger our citizenship or to change its terms. Essentially, for us, it was anyone born on or after a certain date and their descendants are citizens of the United States. Or those people who are in Guam and as of a certain date and all their descendants, citizens of the United States, etc., right? And yes, that can be revoked at any time. And that has always been one of the main arguments for self-determination, for decolonization and the exercise of self-determination is and it's been an argument for incorporation with the United States. It's been an argument for independence from the United States or a free association with the United States as a foreign country, all this stuff, right? But it has never been done. Like our citizenship has never been affected, never been endangered. A couple years ago, one of our columnists, my favorite columnist on Kandit, Mabel, she wrote about the MAGA movement and particularly with Project 2025 and all this stuff, right? And she was like, look, you might think that I'm crazy, but just watch. During this term, they're going to come after our citizenship. And some people laughed about that. And some people were like, whatever, that's never going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. Look, guys, Morgan Griffith, at the very least, is coming after our citizenship. It changes the Organic Act and the Covenant to explain that any person born, any person, so whatever the eligibility was that was linked to 1950 and forever, gets a sunset provision of January 1, 2027. So there will be a change to the to how citizenship or to the granting of citizenship through this thing, right? And in this one section, in the Guam part, in the CNMI part, the Virgin Islands part, and the Puerto Rican part, that's it. It ends there, right? Now, proponents of this bill point to another section of the proposal, which says it qualifies what the first sections does, right? Because if you take the first section alone, anyone born on January 1, 2027 in Guam, Virgin Islands, CNMI, and Puerto Rico would no longer be a citizen by birthright. Like any of your children, like if you live in Guam And if you have a child born, according to these first sections, on January 1, 2027 or later, they won't automatically be United States citizens by birthright. Now, proponents of the measure say that, okay, well, there's this other section that qualifies it, and that says that after January 1, 2027, if you are not born from a U.S. citizen parent or a person lawfully allowed to be in the United States. Wait, what is the exact terminology? Hold on. Let me get you the exact terminology so I'm not screwing this up. Stand by. Okay. The amendment made by subsection A, B, C, and D shall not be construed to affect the citizenship or nationality of a person born in the, by the way, A, B, C, and D are Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam, and CNMI, who is born as a child of a United States citizen or the child of an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence in the United States. And so some people point at that and they're like, oh, look, you know, that's the thing. Let's set aside all of the arguments for that say, like, why would you even allow any tinkering with wholesale citizenship throughout the territories, period? Because as soon as you open this door, so many people are going to try to walk through it, to including the people who want to just revoke our citizenship. And you have to understand some important context here when you talk about an argument like that. Puerto Rico has always been the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to the territories. There are a lot of things that Congress wouldn't mind giving to Guam, Virgin Islands, and CNMI in terms of subsidies and appropriations and all this stuff, because our populations are so small and the financial impact is so minimal. But if they give it to any one of us, they have to give it to all of us, including Puerto Rico, which has millions of people. Now, Puerto Rico's size, its population, and its the population of its diaspora throughout the United States is so significant that Congress walks in eggshells when it comes to Puerto Rico, especially the Republican Party. The Republican Party has always been against admitting Puerto Rico into the Union or any other territory into the Union because historically, territories have elected Democrats as non-voting members to the House. So Republicans have thought, you know, these guys are going to elect Democrats. If they are allowed into the Union, they're going to elect Democrats to the Senate. They're going to take over. The Democrats will always have control over the Senate. So it's always been the granting of incorporation or statehood to the territories has always been an existential threat to the Republican Party. What if, right? And this is not too far removed from reality, and this is probably within the thinking of several people who want to defend the Republican Party, who in Congress, is what if we just revoked their citizenship? What if we used this Griffith statute to just revoke the citizenship of any person born in Puerto Rico or any of the territories? Now, maybe they won't deport people, Puerto Ricans, Guamanians, people from the CNMI, Virgin Islanders who are part of their diaspora, who are living in the States. Maybe they won't deport them, so to speak, back to the U.S. territories, because that's, how do you deport people back to a U.S. territory, right? But they won't have the right to vote in the United States any longer in federal elections. That's, I mean, for as deranged as a policy solution that would be, that's a scenario. And whether it's likely, I'm not sure. But here's the part that greatly affects people who you and I love. They are our brothers and sisters. They might be our relatives. They might be you who are listening to this or watching this right now. That definition of lawfully, wait, where is that? This would not this should not be construed to affect the citizenship or nationality of a person born in the United States territories who is born as a child of a United States citizen or the child of an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence in the United States. You know who is not an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence in the United States? Residents from the compacts of from the freely associated states with a compact of free association with the United States. They're in a different category altogether. And I suppose Griffith and the Congress can amend this Griffith statute to include them, because I'll bet you they didn't even think about these people when they drafted this bill. But this is a big deal. If this passes, ostensibly, come January 1, 2027, which is just around the corner, anyone born in the territories, Guam, CNMI especially, Guam and CNMI especially, but also including Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands, who is in these territories based on the compacts of free association because of their ability to enter the United States through the compacts, they don't have permanent residency status. They're not part of that definition. So their children, based on the strict reading of this law, would not have birthright citizenship. And I suppose they could go to California or Oregon or whatever and give birth there. And then, they'll be protected under the citizenship clause for birthright citizenship, but not in the territories. And it's just such a crazy thing. It's such a crazy thing that, in a rare occurrence, both of the political parties in Guam, both the Democrat and Republican Party, has come out to oppose this broad stroke. And you have Congressman Jim Moylan, who is a Republican, Governor Lulian Guerrero, who is a Democrat, and all these senators in between who are like, and also, government officials in the CNMI as well, who are saying, whoa, 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 what the hell? And that doesn't even factor in the whole, did this jackass, Morgan Griffith, even talk to Kim Hines or Jim Moylan or whoever the representatives are from Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands about this stuff? Was there any consultation whatsoever, any attempt to get any information about how this would affect the territories or how the territories felt? Which goes back to the entire thing about decolonization and the exercise of self-determination, especially for Guam, which has not exercised this right. And so I'll write a story up about it. That it'll be a news story, so I won't have my opinions about it. But this is just, I don't know. More craziness coming from this current Congress, I suppose. For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. I want to thank you so much for joining me this morning. I really appreciate your time and join me tonight for the evening show. I don't know what the subject's going to be, but I have to tell you, it's not going to be a gubernatorial forum. That forum last night was so boring. Like, after the answers to the first question, I stopped paying attention because it was boring. I was done with it. I was marinating chicken and cleaning in the kitchen. You guys have a wonderful day. God bless you, and thank you so much for joining me.
We delivered. Guam AutoSpot is extending our overstock sell-off with the hottest deals on island, like our 2025 GMC Canyon with $4,000 off. Or slide into a brand new Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, starting at just $24,995. September is your chance to drive big and save even bigger. Visit us today or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com or call 478-AUTO. Guam AutoSpot, where the savings never stop.
This stuff's hitting the spot.